Paul Klee Movie Project. Abstract Portraits. Inspired by Paul Klee. Paul Klee was an abstract artist who lived from 1879 to 1940. For this abstract painting that was inspired by Paul Klee, we will see how to paint the watercolor abstract painting in the background, draw the line drawing, and then add texture to the background to emphasize the portrait. The following is a slideshow of some of Paul Klee's paintings. As you can see, Paul Klee loved color and simplicity. He would often paint simple rectangles and line drawings without much, if any, details, which is what makes his artwork abstract. The definition of abstract is when you use lines, shapes, and bold, bright colors to make something look unrealistic. Introducing our artist for today, Kayla. Painting the background. We will need the following painting supplies: watercolor paper, watercolor paint, water, and brushes. We start by putting water on the brush, then wiping the excess water on the side of the bowl and swirling the tip of the brush in the paint. Make sure that you don't dig the brush into the paint. We want to keep a point on the end of the brush. Then we start painting rectangles on the paper. First you outline the shape, and then with the same color, paint in the rectangle that you drew, just as Kayla is doing here. If you want to keep the colors from bleeding together, make sure you paint the next shape away from the one that you just finished. You have to wait for the paint to dry before painting right next to it. If you want the colors to bleed into each other, which is perfectly acceptable, you may paint next to the shapes when they are still wet, and watch the colors bleed together. Here you can see Kayla is filling the entire paper with rectangles of different colors. Once you have the entire paper filled with rectangles, you will need to let the painting dry before starting the next step in this process. Abstract Portraits by Paul Klee. Drawing the portrait. You will need the following drawing supplies: pencil, marker, and eraser. Kayla is now drawing her portrait in pencil right on top of her dried abstract painting. She is referring to her sketch of the pony that she created earlier. You may draw any type of portrait that you like, animal or person, as long as it is a simple line drawing. Kayla has chosen to draw a pony. After completing the pencil line drawing, she will trace over her drawing with a marker. Kayla is using a Sharpie permanent marker, but this could easily be done with crayons, paint, or any other media that you might like to use. Cleaning up the pencil lines. After tracing over all of the pencil lines with the marker, you will need to clean up the painting by erasing the pencil lines that were left. Adding the texture. We will need the following supplies when adding texture to the painting: crayons and texture rubbing plates or some other form of texture. If you do not have any texture rubbing plates, anything with a rough or bumpy texture would work just as well. You might want to experiment with a separate piece of paper to see what type of designs the texture creates. Kayla is adding texture to the background of her painting. It is important to leave the inside of the portrait without any of the texture. This will allow the portrait to stand out from the background, putting the emphasis on her portrait of the pony. When creating textures, it is important to make sure that neither the paper nor the texture rubbing plate, or whatever texture item that you may be using, do not move. You will need to press firmly with the crayon and color as normal, and the design will appear like magic. But make sure the paper doesn't move and the texture rubbing plate does not move, or you will not get the design that you desire. This is Kayla's finished painting. Artwork by second grade students. Special thanks to our artist, Kayla. Special thanks to Paul Klee and the second grade students whose paintings were shown in this video. Background music, Sovereign by Kevin MacLeod, courtesy of www.incompetech.com. Voiceover by Monica Korzanecki. Filming and editing by Monica Korzanecki. Written by Monica Korzanecki.